Welcome back to another video. So I've come out today because Simon from the Wild Campers UK nominated me to do a video on my 5 tips for wild camping. Now, I'm not sure if I'm someone you want to take tips from, but they're there if you want them. I'm not sure I'd want to take tips from me, but there we go. No, but joking aside, he's nominated me, so cheers for that, Simon. I appreciate that. For my 5 tips for wild camping, as I said. So that's what we're out here in this wonderful woodland to do today. So I'm going to go find myself a suitable location, because I've brought my new hammock with me today just to set up and sit in whilst I do this video. Get a brew on, and I will see you shortly. See you in a bit. Soon. Right, so I'm just on my way to the camp, because I like to check on the camp regularly as well. And it looks like we've had a tree come down fairly recently here. Not sure exactly when it's come down, but definitely within the last month or so, I reckon. Yes, you see everything's still green on the top there. About a month ago, me and Rick was doing an overnighter at camp, and it was probably about 12 o'clock-ish. We did hear a tree come down, so, but it wasn't overly loud, that's the thing. Rick thought it sounded like someone was dragging wood, but I got a feeling that was the culprit right there, Rick. Yeah, I feeling that was the culprit. It's alright, it'll make good firewood in a while once it's all dried out. Nice. Not that there's any shortage of firewood around here, but yeah. Anyway, moving on. Just wanted to show you guys a fallen tree. I don't know why. Hello? It's smuts on the lens. There we go. Right, so as you can see, my new bit of kit is set up. I will be doing a video about this hammock, but that is not what this video is about. No, it is not. As I said in the beginning, Simon from the Wild Campers UK tagged me in a video for 5 tips on wild camping. So here we are, and I thought it was a good opportunity to get this hammock out, this new hammock, and set up and something to sit in whilst I do it. So yeah, here is going to be my 5 tips for wild camping in the UK. Right, so first of all, before I get to my 5 tips, I am going to nominate the 5 channels that I'd like to hear from, their tips, and you guys probably will. So the first guy, I'm sure we all know very well if you're into this sort of thing, or if you're only just getting into wild camping. You may not know his channel, but you probably have seen his videos if you've been looking into it for a while. And I know he watches my videos, so it'd be Andy from Kent Survival. If you could give us your 5 tips to wild camping in the UK, if you've got the time, if you feel like doing it. If not, it doesn't matter. But this will probably be the only video of mine he doesn't watch. But yeah, hello Andy, if you're watching. It'd be great to hear from you. Second channel I'm going to nominate is my mate Steve, Scoutman Steve. So if you could give your 5 tips for wild camping in the UK. Third channel I'm going to nominate, and I know this guy hates tag videos, but it's not a challenge, okay Nobby, it's not a challenge. So it'll be step away from the screens. If you could do one if you want, that would be great. We'll hear your 5 tips on wild camping in the UK. My next one, fourth channel, fourth, is my mate Rick from Rickles Outdoors. If you want to do one, that would be great. Be interesting to hear your tips. And the fifth channel that I'm going to nominate is the Cheshire Wanderer. Yeah, the Cheshire Wanderer, mate. If you want 5 tips on wild camping, that would be great. So now we're going to get into the tips, my 5 tips of wild camping here in the UK. Okay, tip number 1, gear. Now, you do not need expensive gear to start wild camping. When I first started wild camping, I bought one of them cheap hammocks off eBay, brand new. It was like £12 I think, and I brought a tarp brand new off eBay, just a cheap tarp, that was about 13 quid. And that was my first hammock and tarp setup. I bought myself I think it was a 3-season sleeping bag from Tesco's, and I just started like that. I bought myself the basics because I wasn't sure if I was going to like it. And it's the same with tents. You know, if you think, oh, I'm not going to like a hammock, I'd rather do it in a tent, and then a tent's fine. You know, you can use a tent in a woodland, you can use a tent in the Lake District, you can use a tent wherever there's a reasonable flat ground. And same as with hammocks, you can use them wherever there's trees and the ground doesn't have to be flat. That's the bonus with hammocks. But I would not advise you going out and buying a £100 hammock and a £50 tarp and a £150 sleeping bag. And the same with a tent. I wouldn't advise you to buy a really expensive tent, because if you decide it's not for you and you don't like it, you ain't going to get that money back, let's face it. So there is nothing wrong with, when you're starting out, buying budget gear, okay? If you are going to buy a cheap tent, some cheap tents, yes, they do leak, okay? But you can always buy a cheap tarp if you're worried about that, to go over the top of that cheap tent. So gear doesn't have to be expensive. I mean, I've got a couple of bushcraft knives. I've got a Heliorden, which at the time when I purchased it, it was just over £100. I snapped it. It snapped. I got it replaced, luckily, because it wasn't my fault. It was a manufacturing fault. And touch wood, it's never snapped since. But I also have a relatively cheap knife, which is not even half the price of the Heliorden. And you know what? That has never broke on me. So it just goes to show, in certain situations, expensive is not always best. Okay? Buy what you can afford. It doesn't matter what other people think, as long as you're getting out, enjoying yourself, and enjoying the woodland or enjoying the hills of the Lake District or the Peak District. It doesn't matter what other people think. There is plenty of well-priced gear out there that will do you for easily the first year of your wild camping. And hopefully by then you'll know if it's for you or not. And if it's not, and you've gone out and bought yourself a cheap £12 hammock and a £13 tarp like I did when I first started, and you decide you don't like it, you haven't wasted a lot of money. Only a little bit of money you've wasted. For gear, don't go too expensive when you're first starting out. And I would say there's one really important bit of gear that you should carry, and that is a first aid kit. I carry a first aid kit all the time in my bag, even in my day bag it goes in there. And that is the most important bit of kit you can own when you're wild camping, especially if you're out on your own. So yeah, gear tip, don't go too expensive. You don't have to. Buy the basics of what you know you're going to need, and you'll be fine. You will be fine. Tip number 2, locations. Where can you camp, where can't you camp? This is England, okay? You can't really camp anywhere unless it's on a campsite or private land you have permission to camp on. Here in the UK we do have a lot of public access land. There are certain parts of the UK like the Peak District and Lake District where they tolerate overnight camping. Technically it is not allowed, but they do tolerate it. In most places of the UK that is not the case. Public access land, yes, you are allowed to go onto public access land to walk your dog, to have a walk, to maybe have a picnic. You are not really meant to camp up and spend the night on public access land. Yes, you can do it and get away with it, but you have to be mindful and you have to be careful. Do not go and camp on private land that belongs to a big estate, and do not just randomly go and camp in some farmer's field or in his woodland. So try and stay with public access land. When you set up your tent or your hammock or you make yourself a shelter, be mindful where you put it. You don't want to put it near a public footpath, for instance. You want to try and get as far away from the public footpaths as you can. And if you decide to have a fire, don't light it until after dark, because that will give you, the smoke will give your position away. Try and stay close to home if you can, if it's your first time. So that way, if you decide it's not for you, or you have a gear failure during the night, you haven't got far to go home. I've never personally had that happen to me, where I've had gear fail on me, or I've just decided, you know what, I've had enough. That's never happened to me, but it could happen, and it does happen. So yeah, be mindful where you camp. Only go onto public access land. Stay away from private land unless you seek permission to do so. Be mindful where you pitch your tent or hang your hammock or build your shelter or set up your tarp, whatever sort of shelter or sleeping situation you've decided to go with. Make sure it's not near footpaths, and try and stay stealthy if you can. That always helps. You can find public access land. You can Google it, and it will, bring up maps of, and they're sort of like, they're colour coded. So, for example, privately owned land will be pink. Public access land might be yellow or green. Council land may be yellow or something like that. I can't quite remember, but you can Google it and you can find out what woodlands and that near you are public access land and what are privately owned. Tip number 3, safety. Now, this is obviously something that plays on a lot of people's minds, especially when they're starting out to do wild camping, and especially if they're going to be doing it on their own. I wouldn't recommend for your first time. I did for my first time and I was fine, but that's because I'm rock hard. Whoa. Oh God, shit myself then. No, I didn't. I'm rock hard, I'm well hard, me. Go wild camping on my own. Well hard, mate. The hammock made me jump. That's how hard I am. Right. So my suggestion would be, and I would recommend, if you can, for your first couple of times, go with a friend that maybe you have that shares similar interests, or even better, if you've got a friend that's been doing it, go with them. Because especially if you camp in a woodland, yeah, at night, the woodland is a completely different place. It comes alive, okay? So the deer will be more active, generally just wildlife will be more active. And if you're on your own, that can seem very, what's the word? I can't think of the word right now. But it can play tricks on your mind, okay? So if you're laying there in your tent or in your hammock and you're laying there very quietly and very still, just relaxing, deer can come quite close to you, and other wildlife can come quite close to you, and it can sound like someone's walking around. In reality, the chances of someone walking around a woodland at night is very, very slim. Yes, it does happen. Yes, it has happened to people. And yes, people have been camping on their own, and they have, had issues and problems with other people. Like, depending where you live, I'm very lucky where I live, but depending where you live in the UK or even the world, some woodlands aren't as remote as you would like. Some woodlands can be near housing estates and things like that, and you do get the odd occasion, depending where you are in the UK, where you get wannabe gangster boys coming through the woods because they're up to no good. They want to set fire to something or whatever, and they'll walk around in their little groups, 4 or 5 of them. And it has happened where people have been camping on their own and they have been given grief by such individuals, wannabe gangsters that walk around with their trousers halfway down their arse. So if you are one of said people, I'm going to educate you a little bit if you're watching this video. In America, especially, in prison, when someone is walking around with their trousers halfway down their arse, it means they're available for a bumming, okay? So technically what you're doing is you're walking around the streets, and anyone who knows, you're telling you're available for a bumming because your trousers are halfway down your arse. And you look stupid, okay? So, yeah, if you're one of them people and you're watching this, stop it, you ain't gangster. So yeah, try and go with a friend if you can, because at night the woodland can be a creepy place. It comes alive at night. It comes alive. So that is probably one thing that does concern people, is if I'm camping on my own, what if someone stumbles across me in the night or whatever? It's highly unlikely. It's only weirdos like us that go in the woods at night. So I guess we're a bit weird. And obviously always have your first aid kit, and especially if you're in the woodland, before you pitch up your tent or hang your hammock, check for deadfall. If there are any dead standing trees that might come over in the night, check for that. If the wind picks up during the night, you don't want a tree coming down on you. And always look above for any big branches that are potentially just hanging there on other branches that may just come down randomly, or any big branches that are hanging off trees. Dead standing and widow makers. Tip number 4: when should I start wild camping? This is quite a good one, because some people love the winter time, just being out walking in winter in the rain and stuff. Some people hate the winter but love the summer. Other people don't really like the summer but they love the winter. I would suggest starting when the weather begins to warm up. Okay, firstly you will need to buy less gear. Okay, you will not need to take as much gear with you, and generally if it's your first time you will enjoy it more. If you're one of these people that doesn't like the winds and the rain and the cold, then I do not suggest starting wild camping in the winter, because you won't like it at all. So yeah, start when the seasons start to change and the weather starts to warm up. That would be my suggestion. And always check the weather, always, because the last thing you, especially in the winter, if you're going to start in the winter, always check the weather, because the weather may say it's 1 degree, but if you've got 40-mile-an-hour winds coming in, that could drop your temperature to below freezing. So always bear in mind, it's not just the rain you want to check, it's the wind as well. The wind is the big one, because the wind can drop the temperature for you. So yeah, if you want to start in the winter, go for it, but you will need more gear, you will need to buy more gear, and you will need to take more gear with you, and you will really need to keep an eye on the weather, especially the wind chill factor. Yeah, summertime I would recommend starting, or when the weather just, starts to warm up. It's always a good time to start. Tip number 5, and this isn't really a tip, this is more of a rule, okay, and it's one that grates on me personally and a lot of other people, and it's leave no trace. One of the most important rules to wild camping is leave the site how you found it. And that does not mean if you're camping in the Lake District or the Peak District and you decide to camp somewhere there and you find some rubbish, a couple of old barbecues and a few empty cans of beer, that does not mean leave it there, okay? Take it with you. If it's someone else's rubbish and you're able to take it out, take it with you. And most importantly, do not leave your own rubbish laying around. Yeah, when I go wild camping, I take a few cans of beer with me, and you know what, when I finish with them cans of beer, I squash them down and I put them straight back in my pack. Or if I'm camping with friends, we have a rubbish bag, a carrier bag hanging on a tree that we put our rubbish in. And you know what, if you're on your own and you've had a few bevies, squash them cans down, put them in your pack. They weigh less than what they did when you brought them in, and they take up less room, okay? That goes for any of your rubbish. Take it with you, okay? And if you do stumble across a bit of rubbish left from someone else, try and take that with you as well, because leaving rubbish, people that leave rubbish behind, give the rest of us a bad name. And we don't like that. So we're well on the leave no trace rule. And it's the same if you have a little fire, okay? In the morning, when you're done and you're packing up, make sure that fire is out, firstly. And with any luck, and if you don't know, you're going to know now, before you have a campfire, make sure you've cleared the ground down to soil. So in the morning when you've finished having that fire, make sure everything is out, put plenty of water on it, whatever you have to do, piss on it to put it out, and then cover it back over. Okay, remove any lumps of biggish lumps of wood that haven't burnt, make sure they're out, scatter them around, okay, get rid of them, and cover the rest of your fire pit over, and leave it how you found it. That is probably the biggest out of the 5 that you can do. Leave no trace. Pack it in. If you packed it in, pack it out. It's not hard. Please do not leave your rubbish laying around in our woodlands, in the Lake District, in the Peak District, in a field, wherever it is you go. Don't leave your rubbish laying around. And if you build yourself a shelter out of what's around you, take it down before you leave, don't leave paracord tied around trees or any form of rope tied around trees. Take it down, scatter it about, return it to how it was. They're my 5 tips. So cheers Simon for nominating me for that. All links to, I can't remember if I said at the start of the video, but all links to everyone that I've tagged in this video for their 5 tips I'll leave in the description below. I'll leave their channel links down there for you. Thank you for watching. Thank you to all the old subscribers for supporting the channel and sticking around for as long as they have since I started doing this. And welcome to all the new subscribers. I've gained a few recently in the last few weeks. I appreciate you all. I appreciate all your comments, all your likes. None of you are underappreciated. So, thank you for supporting the channel. There is a link in the description to buy me a coffee. You can buy me a coffee if you want. Realistically, it's going to go on beer for when I go camping. But if you want, you don't have to. It's there. It's just one of them things. It's there in the description. No pressure. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next video. That's it. See you soon. Thank you. Bye-bye.